Have you ever thought about what it takes to become the most feared warrior in the wizarding world? What if I told you that even the good guys can strike terror into the hearts of their enemies? In today's video, you'll find out why Alastor Moody was the most legendary aura in the history of magic. Alastor Moody is one of the most intimidating figures in Harry Potter, despite fighting for the side of good. A half-mad wizard with paranoia, but also a master duelist and a true war hero. By the time we meet him, he is already a seasoned veteran, scarred, battle-worn, and both feared and ridiculed. Wizards may joke about his paranoia, but they listen when he speaks, because when it comes to hunting dark wizards, no one does it better. But how did he earn his terrifying reputation? What battles shaped him, and who were the dark forces he fought? Let's dive in. Born in Scotland into a family of pure-blood wizards, Moody was destined for a life of war. His ancestors were auras for generations, hunting dark wizards and sending them to Azkaban. He attended Hogwarts, most likely in Gryffindor, and was a top student. Though little is known about his school years, one thing is certain: he was preparing for a future far more dangerous than ordinary wizarding life. After Hogwarts, he enrolled in aura training. Despite being called courses, this was no simple education. The training lasted 3 grueling years, covering combat spells, stealth, and intelligence gathering. Auras weren't just warriors, they were spies, strategists, and detectives. Once he completed his training, he joined the Ministry of Magic's Aura office. But his real test was yet to come. Moody was thrown straight into the chaos of the First Wizarding War. Voldemort and his Death Eaters were rising, and the wizarding world was on fire. This was when Moody cemented his reputation. He fought fearlessly, capturing and imprisoning more Death Eaters than anyone else. He lost an eye, a leg, and covered his body in scars, but he never stopped. His enemies feared him, and his allies saw him as a legend. But war changed him. Even after Voldemort fell, Moody never let his guard down. He refused food or drink from anyone else. He saw conspiracies everywhere, and sometimes he was right. Though many in the ministry started dismissing him as a paranoid old soldier, he never stopped hunting. He was the one who captured Igor Karkaroff, a former Death Eater who later betrayed his own kind to save himself. Before Voldemort's return, Moody finally let his guard down. It cost him dearly. Death Eaters ambushed him in the night, imprisoning him while Barty Crouch Jr. stole his identity to infiltrate Hogwarts. When the truth came out, Moody didn't hesitate. He returned to the fight, leading the Order of the Phoenix after Dumbledore's death. He stood on the front lines once more, refusing to give in. But even the greatest warriors fall. During a mission to protect Harry Potter, Voldemort himself struck Moody down with a killing curse. The legendary aura was gone, just like that. Moody wasn't just a fighter. He was a master of non-verbal magic, a dueling expert, and one of the most skilled auras in history. He taught Nymphadora Tonks, another great aura, and captured half the prisoners in Azkaban. Even after his death, his presence lingered. Dolores Umbridge used his magical eye to spy on her office, but Harry later stole it and gave it a proper burial. Moody's paranoia wasn't madness, it was survival. And in the end, he proved that true warriors never stop fighting. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to live a life of constant battle? What if every step you took, every sip of water, every glance over your shoulder could mean the difference between life and death? In today's continuation, we dive deeper into the story of Alastor Moody, the man who lived by one rule: constant vigilance. Moody wasn't just a warrior. He was a survivor. Every scar on his body told a story. Every lost piece of him was a reminder that war takes its toll. But he never stopped. He couldn't. Not when he knew darkness was always lurking, waiting for him to make one mistake. His paranoia wasn't a weakness. It was his greatest weapon. The other Aurors joked about it. They saw an old man refusing to drink from anyone else's cup, insisting on sitting with his back to the wall, casting detection spells on everything he touched. But they also knew that if a Death Eater was on the loose, Moody would be the one to find them. He had seen too many good men and women fall because they let their guard down. He would never let that happen to himself. The Ministry of Magic changed after the First Wizarding War. The war heroes became relics, reminders of a time the world wanted to forget. Moody, once the most respected Auror in the department, found himself surrounded by politicians and bureaucrats who thought the danger had passed. They laughed at his suspicions, dismissed his warnings. But Moody knew the truth. The war was never over. It was just waiting for the right moment to start again. When Dumbledore came to him with a request, he didn't hesitate. The Order of the Phoenix needed him. Voldemort might have been gone, but his followers were still out there. And Moody knew better than anyone that the Dark Lord's disappearance didn't mean the fight was over. He had spent too many years hunting Death Eaters to believe they would simply fade away. Igor Karkaroff had been one of them, a snake who turned on his own to save his skin. Moody had dragged him before the Wizengamot, had watched him plead for mercy. He had named names, betrayed his former allies. Moody didn't care. A Death Eater was a Death Eater, no matter how many secrets they spilled. They were never to be trusted. The only place for them was Azkaban. But Azkaban wasn't enough. The Ministry thought locking them up was the end of it. Moody knew better. There were always more, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right time. And he would find them, because that's what he did. Even when the Ministry stopped listening, even when they called him paranoid, he kept hunting. He had seen too much to stop now. He followed leads no one else cared about, chased rumors that others dismissed. Sometimes they led nowhere, but sometimes they led to something far worse than he had imagined. The years passed, and Moody became more than just an Auror. He became a ghost story. Parents warned their children about him. Dark wizards feared him. They whispered his name in hushed voices, knowing that if Moody was after them, there was no escape. But even the most unbreakable warriors have their limits. Moody's downfall came not from a Death Eater duel, not from an ambush in the night, but from a deception so perfect even he didn't see it coming. Barty Crouch Jr. had been dead. Or so the world believed. Locked away in Azkaban, forgotten. But dark magic has a way of twisting reality. When Moody awoke, disoriented, trapped in a chest like some discarded relic, he knew he had finally been caught off guard, and that realization stung worse than any curse. For months he remained a prisoner. A man who had spent his life hunting was now the one being hunted, his identity stolen, his magic used by someone else. And the worst part, no one knew. No one realized he was missing. He had spent so long being the paranoid one, the cautious one, and still they had found a way to defeat him. When he was finally freed, there was no time for self-pity. No time to dwell on how close he had come to disappearing forever. Voldemort had returned. The war had begun again, and Moody wasn't going to waste another second. The Order of the Phoenix needed him more than ever. This time, there was no ministry to stand behind, no official orders to follow. It was a fight in the shadows, a battle of survival. And Moody was at the front of it. He saw the signs before anyone else, the slow infiltration, The whispers, the fear creeping back into the wizarding world. The Ministry refused to see it. Even after everything, they still wanted to pretend they were in control. Moody knew better, and he prepared for the worst. When Dumbledore fell, Moody felt something crack inside him. The old man had been the closest thing to a guiding light in a world that was descending into darkness, but now that light was gone. And Moody knew what that meant. War wasn't coming. It was already here. He fought harder than ever, leading the Order with the same ruthless efficiency he had used to hunt Death Eaters decades ago. But he wasn't just fighting an enemy this time. He was fighting time itself. He wasn't the same man he had been in the First War. The scars were deeper, the weight heavier. He could feel it with every spell he cast, every duel he fought. He wasn't afraid of death. He had accepted a long time ago that he wouldn't live to see peace. But he wasn't going to let them win, not while he still had strength left.
And then came the mission. One last operation, one last fight.
Moody knew it was dangerous. They all did. Smuggling Harry Potter out of Privet Drive with Voldemort himself hunting them. It was madness. But there was no other choice. Moody didn't hesitate. He never did. The night sky burned with spells. Death Eaters swarmed. The air was thick with smoke and screams. Moody fought as he always did, with everything he had. But this time it wasn't enough. One moment he was there, fighting, leading. The next, he was gone.
No one saw exactly what happened. No one knew the exact moment Voldemort's spell hit him. All they knew was that one of the greatest warriors the wizarding world had ever known had fallen. His body was never recovered. Just like that, Alastor Moody, the legend, the hunter, the warrior, was gone.
But legends don't die, not really. His name lived on. In the whispers of aurors who still feared his gaze. In the stories told to young wizards about the man who never let his guard down. In the memories of those who fought beside him. He had spent his life fighting for a world that never fully understood him. But he had never fought for glory. He had fought because someone had to. And even in death, Alastor